I hope. And as you are entered, you will be entered muted. We would ask that if you have a question at some point, that you would unmute yourself to speak. If you do have a question, we were asking that you please use the raise hand feature, which you can typically find at the bottom of your screen under the reactions tag. If you would just select the raise hand, we will call on you. I would will periodically stop during the presentation to ask for questions on any information that we've covered. If you have a question on information that we haven't quite gotten to yet, I would just ask that you hold that until we either get to that point or to the end of the meeting, and then we'd be happy to review anything that we may not have covered, or review anything that we have covered, actually. So again, thank you for joining us. My name is Leanne Butchlick. I am the Director of Public Works and Shorewood Water Utility. We're joined by a couple of our team members here this evening also, which I am going to get to as we start the presentation. But I'm going to go into share screen mode here, and then we'll get started on the presentation. All right. There we go. So this evening, also on the call, we have some resources for any questions that might come up, participants in our project. This is not an exhaustive list, obviously, but some of the key players. Tom Nenning is here. He is the project manager. He is a principal at City Water, also an engineer, does a lot of work with the village's water system and is very familiar with our utility. I'm Leanne. We also have Joel Colsey here. Joel is the Assistant Director of Public Works. He's actively involved in utility operations and is a great resource for this also. Steve Douster is a representative of Midwest Meter, which is the company who is the project's prime contractor. Midwest, in addition to being the prime, is the supplier of the new water meters. We're utilizing Badger Meter for our meters on this project. We also have Tyler Simpson from Aclara. Aclara is a software vendor. They provide the reading solution, if you will, that allows the meter to transmit the water consumption data to the village for billing purposes. We have someone who actually has a name, even though it's not listed here, for Vanguard Utility Systems, is scheduled to be on the call as well. They are the installation subcontractor and will be installing the water meters in the residential homes. So we have some goals tonight that we'd like to share with you at the outset of the presentation. Primary purpose of tonight is to just enhance your understanding of the project. So we will outline the regulatory requirements for the meter replacements. We will review COVID considerations and protocols, and we'll also explain the meter replacement process. Through all of that, of course, we want to be accessible to address your questions and concerns if you should have any. Throughout the project, our goals are similar: to comply with the Public Service Commission and the Department of Natural Resources regulations that are guiding this project. We want to safely and conveniently replace your water meter, and we want to continue to be accessible to address your concerns and questions. So the outline, or tonight's agenda, we'll talk a bit about the project history. Again, the regulatory requirements related to this project. We will share a little bit of information about the current reading and billing processes that we use. We'll talk about the AMI solution, which is the new process that we will be using after this project is implemented. And we'll talk about project participants and roles. We will talk about COVID and the response for this project, review how we've adjusted the schedule and attempt to be as responsive as we can. And we'll talk about our installation contractors protocols. We'll talk about the project process and the schedule. We'll talk about what it really means for you, for the resident, and we'll throughout provide questions or allow you to ask questions, and we'll provide answers. So to start, the regulatory requirements. There are a number of regulatory requirements that are driving this project. The first is a requirement of the Public Service Commission, which, as you know, oversees utilities in the state of Wisconsin, in this case, specifically the water utility. The village is currently not in compliance with Wisconsin Administrative Code of the Public Service Commission, Chapter 185. According to that administrative code, communities and water utilities are to replace their meters on a 20-year replacement schedule. We started our last meter replacement program in 1995. So as you can tell by doing the math, you're definitely due for meter replacements. That is something that the Public Service Commission monitors closely and carefully, and they have communicated that to the village. A second regulatory requirement is related to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. There is a administrative code that addresses cross-connection control. Cross-connection control is a program that identifies potential sources of contamination in the drinking water system, and communities are required to conduct periodic interior inspections. The village has received a notice of non-compliance from the department that we are behind schedule on those residential customer inspections. As I mentioned, those are required at 10-year intervals, and they will be done in conjunction with the meter replacement. A third regulatory requirement, which plays into this project, relates to the Environmental Protection Agency's new lead and copper rule. As a part of that rule, each community or utility is required to develop a material inventory that relates to the type of material that is used in the construction of water services. As you know, many older communities have a significant number of lead water services. Shorewood is certainly no exception to that. So under the new lead and copper rule, we are required to verify the material of each private service line. To appropriately make that identification, an interior inspection or verification is required. So a bit about our current process. The village currently utilizes a touchpad meter reading system. I'm sure that you are all well aware of this. A utility employee will visit each home 4 times a year to collect meter data through a handheld device. The photo on this slide is similar to the type of system that we have. And the employee must use that handheld device to make physical contact with the touchpad. That's located on the exterior of your home. It is hardwired to the meter, and it transmits that water consumption data. As you might guess, those reads are pretty labor intensive. It typically takes 2 employees 2 weeks each to complete that reading. And those efforts are often hampered by weather conditions and snow cover. So as you might imagine, in the wintertime, it can take a bit longer than it does in the summer when conditions are a bit better. Our billing process uses that data that's collected in the field, and it is downloaded from those handheld devices and imported into billing software. And the bills are then generated and mailed to our utility customers. This is a photograph of a demonstration board that we created that attempts to show or illustrate what a typical meter set might look like that you'd see in your home. So I'm going to use my cursor here to go over this as I talk. So this is the touchpad, which is located on the exterior of your home. There's a wire that runs through the wall and then down to the water meter. This is the water meter. The water will enter the home through a private service line, comes in this way, runs through the meter. That meter records the consumption data, puts up here. And once the water passes through the meter, it then enters, this would be considered the private plumbing portion of the home. So after traveling through the meter, it goes through this and then is distributed into the home. So the setup that we just showed you is what could probably charitably be described as a 20th century technology. The village board approved an automated metering infrastructure solution in September of 2019. And this really is much more technologically advanced. I hesitate to say cutting edge because it has been around for a number of years, and it is definitely becoming the standard in utility infrastructure. So AMI is an integrated system of meters, communications networks, and data management products that enables communication between the utilities and customers. Each meter records consumption of water and communicates that information to the utility. A meter transmission unit, which is connected to your water meter, uses low-powered radio frequency to transmit data to our water utility billing software. So this system will reduce the need for manual reading, and it can detect leaks on the customer side much sooner than we can on the current system. So there are several benefits to the implementation of this system in the village. It gives us much better customer usage information. It also acts as a tool for water loss reduction. Any utility system deals with what is typically called water loss, and what that can be defined as the village purchases an amount of water from Milwaukee Waterworks or the city of Milwaukee. That water is then distributed through our distribution system to you, the customer. In a perfect world, all of the meter readings from all of our customers, when added together, that water consumption would match the water that came through the meter when we purchased the water from the city of Milwaukee. That typically does not happen. And that difference is referred to as water loss. And there are a number of reasons for that. Some are unavoidable, many are avoidable, but accurate billing and accurate usage information on the customer side gives us a much better number to match against the wholesale purchase of water side. So we can really see what that gap is, and we can make much better decisions and take much better actions to reduce that, which is good for everyone because it will ultimately contribute to the reduction of rates. Again, This system does allow for earlier detection of customer plumbing leaks. If we manually read 4 times a year, if something happens the day after we take a read, we won't know about that for 3 months. And it can often happen that a customer will have a plumbing leak. That water goes through the meter, so it is billable. And we don't like it any better than the customer when we have to give them a significantly higher water bill than they were expecting. This system is set up so that it does alert us if consumption takes a dramatic change, and we can then alert the customer much more quickly and give them the option to review their plumbing for leaks, running toilets, leaky faucets, etc. An AMI also reduces vehicle emissions because those employees are not out and about doing meter readings. We're not using those vehicles for this purpose. It does allow a two-way communication path, and overall contributes to time savings. As I mentioned, this is becoming standard utility equipment. Some other area communities that have had an implemented AMI system for some time include Cudahy, Wauwatosa, Madison, Fitchburg, and East Troy. There are many others, but this is kind of a short list that we're sharing with you tonight. So this is an illustration of what a new meter set will look like after the implementation of this project. At the top here, we have the data transmission unit that I mentioned. This actually, rather than being installed on the exterior of a home, is more typically installed within what would be the floor joists of your first floor in the basement ceiling. Again, that is hardwired to the meter. Water would enter here from your private service line and run through the meter and then up and out into your household plumbing after traveling through the meter. So I covered this a bit during the introductions, but just to reiterate the project participants and roles, the Village of Shorewood would be considered, or the Shorewood Water Utility would be considered the owner of the project. City Water is under contract with the Village of Shorewood to provide engineering and project management services for this project. Midwest Meter is the general contractor. They, as I mentioned, are the meter supplier and will be using Badger meters. Aclara is the AMI, or the reading software vendor. Vanguard Utility Services is the meter installer. And all three of these firms are subcontractors to, or I guess are subcontractors to Midwest Meter. So, you know, the primary topic of everyone's conversations for the last year or so, and the project implementation and how we are responding to the COVID pandemic. First off, we have adjusted the schedule of this project. Planning for the water meter replacement program began in 2018 and continued into 2019. Initially, we were targeting an April 2020 implementation. In March of 2020, the village board deferred this project at that point indefinitely. Earlier this year, the village board directed staff to proceed with the meter replacements beginning August 2nd. There were several factors that played into that directive, particularly an expectation of vaccination progress by August. Our installation contractor has shared with us their protocols for COVID-19. And I would like to point out here that our contractor has been doing these replacements throughout the pandemic in other communities, in other states and other areas of the country. So they have been working during this time, successfully installing water meters in residential homes in other parts of the country for the last several months. And they use pretty typical protocols that I'm sure all of you are familiar with from either your places of employment or other contacts. Daily temperature checks and symptom screening. They will use personal protective equipment, including masks, gloves, sanitizer, etc. We'll continue to implement and promote social distancing. They have been instructed to eliminate physical contact with customers, so no handshakes, which I think we're all getting used to. Frequent hand washing and sanitizing before and after each replacement. And they are strongly encouraging their employees to be vaccinated. So this slide, which has a lot of steps, and I will go through these, illustrates the process for the project's implementation. So if we begin here at this box, this is the first appointment request. So all residents will receive an appointment, a letter outlining the project and requesting that they schedule an appointment for their meter replacement. This letter will be forwarded via US mail. It will include information related to appointment times and methods to schedule that appointment. That can be done either by phone or online, and all the information to guide you to those locations will be included in the letter. If the Vanguard utility employees are in the neighborhood and are aware that a particular home has not yet responded to the appointment request, say they're replacing a meter at a neighbor's home, they'll leave a door hanger just as a reminder that we're looking for that appointment to be scheduled. After a period of time, a second appointment request will be sent, again via US mail. If no response is received, we'll try the door hanger again. Again, after a period of time, a third appointment request would be sent via US mail if we do not receive a response. At any point that a schedule is made, that appointment is scheduled, then we'll replace the meter. If for some reason there is no response to the appointment request, the utility contractor, installation contractor will turn that back to the village. And so we're calling that an account return to the village. At that point, the Public Service Commission does provide a process for which a disconnection of service notice can be issued. That is certainly not our goal. Our goal is to successfully, quickly, conveniently, and safely replace your meter. But because a water meter, a functioning and current up-to-date water meter is required under Wisconsin Administrative Code, that code does also lay out a process that the village follows if it cannot gain access to that meter. And so if that becomes an issue, then we proceed down a path that allows for the disconnection of water service until we can gain access to the meter and schedule and complete its replacements. So project schedule. we have a rollout. As you can imagine, we will be doing this in sections. Typically, that'll be geographically. This is not the final and exact map or schedule that we will be using, but it will likely be similar, and we're going to use this just for illustrative purposes. So the village will be divided into a number of different installation routes. Beginning in late June, early July, a select group of these areas will be targeted for appointments, and will receive that letter that I referenced in the last slide, asking that you schedule an appointment for your meter replacement. We'll work through each route or each area for a bit before moving on to the next. And we will progress through the village in that manner. So every 2 to 3 weeks, we'll send out a new batch of letters for the next appointment grouping. And we would anticipate that the entire installation process will take about 20 to 22 weeks. So again, just to review, our communications, meter replacement letters sent via US mail based on routes. That'll start in July and will likely continue into January of 2022. Appointments can be made by calling the numbers provided in the mailing or online at the web address provided in the mailing. Installers will knock on doors in active meter install areas if an appointment is not made. Again, that was referenced in the process flow chart with the door hanger. A minimum of 3 letters will be mailed via US mail to notify of the change prior to starting a disconnection process. That disconnection process always starts with, we will always start that process should we have to go down that road with a certified letter to make sure that everyone is aware that of the progression of those attempts at contact. So we would ask that if you anticipate being out of town for an extended period of time, perhaps you're out of town for the summer or the winter, that you just let us know, and we'll make an effort to schedule that replacement while you are available and in the area. So homeowners have a role in the project just the same way all the village and contractors do. We ask that you respond to the meter replacement appointment schedule request. When we are able to schedule that appointment, we ask that you provide access to the meter, and that does include having an adult 18 years of age or older present for the appointment. We ask that you keep the area surrounding the meter free of obstructions. So that means no furniture, stored items, walls, or any other type of structure that limits our access, our physical access to the meter. And that you provide a clear path and a work area during the appointments. Village code does require you to maintain your plumbing in good repair. That includes both the plumbing coming into and going out of the meter. If those valves are not operable, we will attempt to freeze the service line so that we can complete the meter replacement. We will ask immediately following the replacement of the meter, the service technician will perform a very brief and perfunctory cross connection inspection in the basement. If there are any issues to be corrected, that will be the homeowner's responsibility. But we would also ask that you review the materials that we leave behind. As mentioned earlier, the purpose of a cross-connection inspection is really to protect our drinking water system and eliminate any potential hazards or cross connections that could jeopardize our ability to deliver clean, safe drinking water. And again, please notify us if you will be out of town for an extended period of time, and then we will make sure that we schedule that replacement at your availability. So homeowners have roles, village also has roles. Our primary role is to maintain clean and safe drinking water. In order to do that, we have to comply with the DNR cross connection control program. We have to comply with the EPA's lead and copper rule inventory requirement. Our role is always to operate the water utility enterprise with fair and equitable rates. In order to do that, we must comply with the Public Service Commission's meter replacement schedule. It's certainly our role to manage this project safely and cost effectively. And we always strive to communicate effectively and provide great customer service. So there are a number of resources for additional information on the project. Once we get rolling, I anticipate there will be weekly updates in the village manager's memo. If you do not subscribe to that, you can do that from the village's website. We have a web page, or actually series of pages, web section devoted to this project, which you can find at villageofshorewood.org/water-meter. There are sub pages with frequently asked questions, a review of the homeowner responsibilities that we just talked about. There will also be a page that will include photographs of all of the meter installers that will be assigned to the village of Shorewood. So if there's any concern whatsoever with someone's identity, a resident can either call the Public Works Department, call the police department, or check that web page and match that meter installer's photo ID tag to the photos that we have on the web page. There is additional information about the cross connection control program and inspection and what is involved in that. This virtual project information meeting recording will be posted on the website and will remain there through the duration of the project. There's also a statement from the North Shore Health Department regarding this project and the technology it uses. We've also included a leak detection troubleshooting guide, just as some information for homeowners, and copies of all communications that have been mailed or will be mailed will also be available for viewing on the website. As always, you can contact the Department of Public Works at this number and ask any one of our staff questions about this or any project. We're always happy to share what information we have. This is the phone number again for the website, my email, Joel's email. You can certainly use the method of communication that works best for you. We respond to both. At this point, does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? Again, I would just like to ask you to use the raise hand feature at the bottom, and then when we call on you, you can unmute yourself to speak. So, Mr. Chow.
Yes, I have a few questions. When you mount the transmitter on the basement ceiling, is this a battery operated transmitter that you don't need electrical wiring? How long does the battery last?
So I can answer that one, Leanne. Yes, it is a battery that's used to power the radio device, and it is a 20-year life on it. So the battery that's in the radio unit is similar to the 20-year life of the meter. So that's why we like to marry them together. So we only have to get into the house one time and we change both at the same time.
Okay, and so it's using Zigbee or something like that? You know, what kind of protocol, wireless protocol they're using?
Tyler, if you would like to unmute yourself and answer that question, that'd be great.
Wireless protocol battery wise is your question, Peter? I'm sorry.
No, it's the transmitting the water usage. Is it using Zigbee or Bluetooth or whatever?
I see. Yeah, so it's using radio RF frequency that gets signal out of the house to a collector that's mounted in the village and back to the village software. So it's radio RF frequency that comes from that unit itself.
Yeah, that's kind of a generic answer, but okay, that's fine. Do you know if that affects ham radio at all? I have ham radio stuff in my house.
So the frequency that radio communicates on is specific to Shorewood, and it's a licensed frequency with the FCC. So it's in the 450 to 470 megahertz band. And so for ham radio operators, typically that band's quiet, and it's actually a licensed FCC frequency that's owned by Shorewood. So as a ham operator, you should not see any interference on that.
Okay. And what happens if we have lead pipes that are incoming into the house? Is there a chance to replace that at some point?
That is not a part of this particular program. We do offer that in conjunction with water meter replacements when those are scheduled in the area. The village will be having a larger discussion about those types of programs, specifically as we talk about implementation of the EPA's new lead and copper rule. But yes, there are opportunities, but not as a part of this program.
Now, is there something, wrong with copper as well as lead, or is copper okay?
We use a standard copper service, but like anything, moderation is good, too much is not. So we do also test for high levels of copper in the water. Copper is also a metal, and in excessive amounts can have health impacts. But typically not nearly what you see with a lead service.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Julie, I believe I saw your hand next.
Yes, my question is how much space around the water heater is needed for the installation process?
So typically we'd like about 2.5 to 3 feet kind of around the meter available for the technicians to get in there and be able to isolate the valves, to operate the valves, or to freeze the incoming service pipe if they have to. And then it's usually enough time, enough space around the meter there that'll allow them to change the meter out.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Barbara Kylie Miller, please.
Thank you. For those of us that don't have exposed beams in our basement ceiling, we have plaster covering them. How would you affix the water meter instead? Would you bolt it to the ceiling, or how would that work?
So that's an excellent question, and I'm not sure, Leanne, do we have anybody from Vanguard that's on the line? I saw Kathy. I don't know, Kathy, are you with us from Vanguard? It doesn't sound like. So typically, depending upon the type of ceiling that's there, if it's a false ceiling, because it's just a small wire, we would remove one of the ceiling panels and then look to put it above the false ceiling. If it's dried wall there, then we're probably going to have to try and attach it to the wall itself.
Yeah, there's no panels. It's just,
Okay.
Those concrete block basement walls, and then previous owners, have plaster on the ceiling. So I'm sure it will be fun. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah. I think in situations like that, we would certainly work with the homeowner to find the most desirable solution. We do have a protocol for outside mount of that data transmission unit. There is a small one-time additional cost to do that alternate installation. But, maybe Barbara, in your particular situation, that might be something we'd want to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure we're not the only ones in the village with a house that's almost 100 years old. I think it's 90, it's 99 this year. So, it just brings us joy every year. So just one more example. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. I don't see any other hands raised.
There's one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane. Oh, that's a clap. Not okay. Good. Good for us. So, as I mentioned, this session is being recorded.
I did have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Will the meter replacement letter be sent to the homeowner, or will it be sent to the house address in Shorewood? Because those are different.
Right. Oftentimes they are. The letters will be sent to the owner of record. Well, let me rephrase. The letters will be sent to the recipient of the utility bill. Typically, that is a property owner, but not in all cases. If we do not receive response to the initial letters and are aware that they are going to someone who does not reside in the dwelling that we're looking at, then we will also attempt to make communication with the residents of the property.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, just maybe you just kind of want to go over if somebody needs to raise their hand if they didn't hear from the very beginning how to do that.
Please go ahead, Tom. You're right there.
So at the bottom of your screen, there's a little reactions tab. If you click on that, there's a raise the hand that you can click on, and then we'll see that and be able to call on you. So, but yeah, as of right now, I don't see anybody raising their hand with any more questions.
Okay.
Is there any comments that anybody might have for the village or for our installation staff? Concerns about the project?
Okay, well, as I mentioned, this session is being recorded.
Looks like
I'll get you in just a second, Barbara. Let me just run through this real quick. So the session is being recorded. We will be repeating the presentation again at 6 o'clock, perhaps with a new round of questions from a different group of participants. Both sessions will be available to view from the village's website. We'll do my very best to get them posted tomorrow. So if you do wish to come back, you may certainly do that. Barbara.
I just want to recap, in case I missed it, the cost to the homeowner, the property owner, unless we have to make some corrections to some of those valves or, plumbing things near the meter that the installer finds. Is there any cost to us for this installation or?
No, there is no, yep, there is no direct cost. This is a budgeted a project that where the cost is borne by the water utility, ultimately by its ratepayers. But no, there is no out-of-pocket cost related to this project, unless, as I mentioned, you choose that alternate installation of the data transmission unit. And then I believe we're looking at about $45 to have it mounted on the exterior of the home.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so I think we are done for this particular session. You can hang around for the next one that begins at 6 o'clock if you like, or you may certainly go enjoy what I think is still a beautiful sunny late afternoon, early evening.
So we've got one question.
Thanks again for joining us.
We've got one question there, Leanne.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I believe it was
Robin, if-
Robin.
Yep, it was Robin.
I think they're gone.
I think she exited. Hopefully she can come back in and ask her question.
Maybe it was a hand clap.
Thank you, Tyler, for your
Yeah, thanks, Tyler.
celebrational reaction there.
I think he's just checking out all the buttons to see what they do.
I like that. That's neat. Good job, Leanne.
Thanks.
Are we still recording the session until 6?
Um,
I think we're gonna keep it recording until 7,
Yeah.
right? And then we'll
yeah,
just
I
edit
think
out
so,
this
simply
portion.
because I don't want to be responsible for not being able.
Hey,
Hi, Rebecca.
hey, I was just gonna say, if you, is it our Zoom?
Yeah,
Oh, if you stop recording, just start it again and then we'll loop it up to the website. They'll both load.
oh. Well, I'm,
If you want, but if not, you are welcome to.
okay, well, how do I stop recording?
At the bottom,
Mhm.
there
Yeah,
should
there's
be a square
Yep,
where you can push that.
okay, well,
Pause.
I'm getting a note that says I have to ask the host to give me permission to record.
Oh, I wonder if I'm on there as.
All right, I'm gonna hit record now. So it's recording this meeting.
Okay. I'll give it 1 minute till we hit 6 o'clock. All right. Well, thank you very much for those of you who are joining us for the second session of our water meter replacement program virtual public meeting. We have a slideshow presentation that we are going to run through. So I'm going to bring that up and we'll get started on that. Uh-oh. Hang on. All right, I'm going to try this again. I apologize. Okay, you can see that, right?
Yes.
All right. So again, thank you for participating in our virtual project information meeting. I'm going to introduce a couple of people who are on the line with us this evening related to the project, and they can wave to you as I introduce them. The first is Tom Nenning. Tom is an engineer. He with City Water. He is also the village's contracted project manager for this effort. I'm Leanne Butchlick. I am the Shorewood Director of Public Works. Also on the line is Joel Colsty. Joel is the Assistant Director of Public Works and is significantly involved in utility operations on a day-to-day basis. Steve Douster is with Midwest Meter, which is the project's prime contractor, excuse me. Tyler Simpson is with Aclara, who is providing the software for this effort. And I do not believe that we have anyone on the line at this point from Vanguard Utility Systems, but Vanguard is the installation subcontractor and their employees will actually be installing the water meters. So our goals for tonight are to enhance your understanding of the project. We'll talk a bit about the regulatory requirements for this project. We'll review the COVID considerations and protocols. We'll explain the meter replacement process, and we will be accessible to address your questions and concerns. Throughout the project, we will strive to comply with the Public Service Commission and Department of Natural Resources regulations. We will safely and conveniently replace your water meter, and will be accessible to address any questions or concerns that you may have. So tonight, the outline for this presentation is to review the project history. That includes the regulatory requirements, the current reading and billing processes, our new AMI solution, and the project participants and roles. We'll talk a bit about our COVID response and how we have adjusted the schedule and the project to respond to the global pandemic. We'll talk about our installation contractor safety protocols. We'll review the project process and schedule. And we'll talk a bit about what it really means for residents and what your role is in the project. And then we'll follow it up with opportunity for you to answer questions, and we'll do our very best to answer them. So we'll begin with the regulatory requirements. There are several that come into play and relate to this project. The first is a requirement of the Wisconsin Public Service Commission, which regulates public utilities. So the village is not in compliance currently with Wisconsin Administrative Code Public Service Commission Chapter 185 that governs water utilities and the metering and sale of water. In PSC 185, 0.76 sub 6 to be exact, a replacement schedule of 20 years is outlined. The village last implemented a meter replacement program in 1995. And as we are entering close to the second half of 2021, we are well beyond the 20-year replacement schedule timeframe. And additionally, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources regulates drinking water and has a program entitled Cross Connection Control. The department has issued a notice of non-compliance to the village of Shorewood for failure to complete a corrective action. Our current Cross Connection Control program is out of schedule. And in order to address that and get back on schedule, we need to do an interior inspection of all of the residential units in the village of Shorewood. A cross-connection control program identifies potential sources of contamination to the public drinking water supply. And as mentioned here, it requires periodic interior inspections. The village's inspection interval is 10 years, and we are beyond that 10-year mark. We are striving to do this in conjunction with a water meter replacement because we believe it's most convenient to residents, as we would only need to gain access to the home at one point to do a multitude of items that will address these regulatory requirements. The third of those items relates to the Environmental Protection Agency's new lead and copper rule. That new rule that was recently passed includes a requirement for communities to develop a service line material inventory. The service line is the infrastructure that draws water from the village's water system and delivers it into your home. Under the new lead and copper rule, the village or utility must verify the type of material of each private service line for every residence in the community. And this does require an interior inspection or verification. So in addition to the replacement of the water meter and the cross connection control inspection, we will also be verifying the lead service line material. So a bit about our current process as it relates to water meter infrastructure. We currently use a touchpad meter reading system. So quarterly, one of our utility employees will visit each home and collect water meter data through a handheld device. You see the picture on the right of the slide. That device actually must make physical contact with the touchpad on the exterior of your home. As you might imagine, this is a pretty labor-intensive process. In cold weather, snow conditions often require more time than we might even typically use. Our billing process use that meter reading data that is collected in the field. It is downloaded from those handheld devices into the village's utility software, and bills are generated and mailed to customers. The system that we are currently using is several decades old, and in fact, the vendors no longer support the software that's used. So it is definitely time for an upgrade. This is the photograph of an example that our utility staff built just to show you what a current meter set looks like. Beginning at the top here, this is the touchpad that is mounted to the outside, maybe siding on your home. This is where the handheld device must connect to download the consumption data. That is hardwired to your existing meter. Water will enter your home from the village's main in the street through the private service line, and it'll run through the meter, which records the consumption data. And then it will then be distributed to the internal plumbing in your house after it travels through the meter. So the village board approved an automated metering infrastructure solution in September of 2019. We refer to that as AMI. And AMI is an integrated system of meters, communication networks, and data management products that allows communication between utilities and customers. So each meter records the consumption of the water, and then the data transmission unit communicates that information directly to the utility. That MTU, or meter transmission unit, is connected to the meter, and it uses low-powered radio frequency, or RF, to transmit the data back to our billing software. This reduces the need for manual reading and can detect leaks much sooner than our current system. Typically, a read, which we do quarterly, requires 2 employees, 2 weeks for each billing cycle. This transmission of the same data is nearly instantaneous. So the benefits to AMI, it gives us better and more refined customer usage information. And we can use it as a tool for water loss reduction. All utilities experience what is referred to as water loss. That loss is the difference in the volume of water that we purchase from the city of Milwaukee, which is our water supplier, and the amount of water that we then bill based on the readings of each individual residential water meter. There can be many reasons for that water loss. Some are unavoidable, some are preventable, but having that information is really the best tool for us to make decisions and take actions to reduce that water loss, which ultimately improves the cash or the the operational financial position of the utility. An AMI system also allows us to detect customer plumbing leaks much earlier. Typically, when we do the manual reads on a quarterly basis, a lot can happen in a 3-month period, and we take a reading, and then 3 months later we take another reading, and there can be a significant increase in water use if there are any types of plumbing leaks in the interior of the home. An AMI solution actually takes readings on an hourly basis, and it can alert us to a significant increase in water usage, or which we can then use that information to alert a customer that they may have a leak, which would contribute to a much higher than would be expected bill. An AMI system would allow us to reduce vehicle emissions, as the meter reading employees are not using vehicles to visit each home and get that reading data. AMI provides a two-way communication path just for better data transmission, and ultimately provides a significant time savings for our utility employees. Other communities in the area do have AMI systems. This is current technology, but it has been around for some time. So the Cudahy and Wauwatosa, both in the Milwaukee metro area, use this type of system. Madison, Fitchburg, and East Troy, a bit further out, also currently use these systems. There are a number of others in the state, but these are kind of a short list that we're sharing with you tonight. So this is an illustration of what a new meter setup with the AMI reading software or solution would look like. Rather than a touchpad mounted to the exterior of your home, we have a data transmission unit. This is typically mounted within the basement ceiling of your home. There is a hard wire, again, that connects to the water meter. Water will enter your home through your private service, run through the meter, and then be distributed through your private plumbing system after it's recorded by that new water meter. So we during introductions talked a little bit about who was associated with what particular group, but project participants and roles. The Village of Shorewood obviously is the owner of the project. We are contracting with City Water, and City Water is providing engineering services and project management services. The village has a contract for this project with Midwest Meter. They are operating as the general contractor. They are supplying Badger meters. Aclara is the AMI software vendor, and Vanguard Utility Services is providing the meter installation services. Obviously, an important topic of conversation in our project implementation discussion is the COVID response. We have been working on this project and planning for its implementation for a number of years, beginning in 2018. That planning continued into 2019, and we were targeting an April of 2020 project implementation date. In March of 2020, the project was deferred indefinitely by the Shorewood Village Board. In February of this year, the board directed staff to proceed with the project and begin meter installations on August 2nd. There were a number of variables that went into that date selection. A significant consideration was an expectation of progress with vaccination in the general public. So our installation contractor, Vanguard Utility Services, has shared their protocols. I think it is important to note that they have been working for much of the last year doing these types of water meter installations and replacements across the country in multiple states. And so what they bring through that experience is the use of daily temperature checks and symptom screening for their installers. Their installers are provided with and use personal protective equipment, including masks, gloves, sanitizers, etc. They continue to promote social distancing. They have eliminated any type of physical contact with customers, including handshakes, which I think we are all getting used to. They promote frequent hand washing and sanitizing before and after each meter installation. And they're strongly encouraging vaccination among their employees. Project, I think I went backwards, sorry. So this graphic illustrates the process for the implementation of this project. It really begins with a group of letters that include a request to schedule an appointment for your meter replacement. Those will be mailed via US mail. When a resident, when you receive this letter, it will ask you to schedule an appointment for that meter replacement. We will schedule the appointment, we'll take care of the meter replacement, and we will both be on our way. If we do not receive a response to that letter, when technicians are in the area, say on the block or in the neighborhood doing scheduled appointments, they'll leave a door hanger reminding you of the request to schedule the appointment. That'll be followed up with a second mailed letter as an appointment request. Then we go into the door hanger again. There will be a third appointment request sent via US mail. At any point, if an appointment is scheduled, we go into the meter replacement process. If no response is received after the third letter, the Vanguard will return the account to the village, and then we will begin a process that is outlined by the Public Service Commission that does provide for disconnection of the water service if no access to the meter is granted. That is most certainly not our goal in this process. Our goal is to replace meters. But an accurate and functioning water meter is required of the village under Public Service Commission Chapter 185. And if we cannot gain access to that meter, disconnection of the water service is one of the tools that is outlined by the Public Service Commission. So the project will be rolled out in small phases. The village will be divided into installation routes. This is not an exact or final map, but it's illustrative of the process that we'll use. Each area will be targeted for appointments and meter changes. We'll send letters, we'll change out meters, we'll do our cross connection surveys. And then every 2 to 3 weeks, we'll move to a new area and start the process over again. We anticipate that it'll take approximately 20 to 22 weeks to complete the project throughout the village. So this slide really just gives an overview of the different communications that the village will be making with residents and utility customers. That first meter replacement schedule letter will be sent via US mail, again, starting in July. As we work through the village, those letters will continue through the early part of 2022. The letter will provide information on how a meter replacement appointment can be scheduled. There will be telephone numbers and a web address provided. Both of those will be provided in the mailing. Installers will knock on doors in active meter areas if we haven't had an appointment made. This I mentioned earlier, maybe a knock or maybe a door hanger. A minimum of 3 letters will be mailed to notify the resident of the meter change process. And we would just ask that if you expect to be out of town for an extended period of time, that you notify the village, and so we can work out a replacement on your schedule. So homeowners have a role in the project as well. Your role initially begins with a response to our appointment schedule request. Once we have that replacement scheduled, your role will be to provide access to the meter. That includes having an adult 18 years or older present for the appointment. The area surrounding the water meter must be free of obstructions so that we can get access to change it out. That means no furniture, stored items, walls, or other structures. It also means a clear path and a work area available at the time of the appointment. Village code does require homeowners to maintain their plumbing in good repair. That includes plumbing on both sides of the meter. If the isolation valves, which allow the water to be turned off and on again, are not operable, the service line will be frozen so that we can complete the meter replacement. As mentioned earlier, at the time of the meter replacement, the technician will do a cross-connection inspection. They will leave behind some materials that provide information on that cross-connection program. We would just ask you to review those materials and correct any issues that may exist. Again, and please notify the village if you'll be out of town for an extended period. So village obviously also has a role in this project. Our primary objective at all times is to maintain clean and safe drinking water. In order to do that, we must comply with the Department of Natural Resources Cross-Connection Control Program and comply with the EPA's lead and copper rule inventory requirement. We always strive to operate the water utility enterprise with fair and equitable rates. In order to do so, we need properly functioning and accurate water meters, and so must comply with the PSC's meter replacement schedule. Our role is to manage this project as safely and cost effectively as possible. And it's always our goal to communicate effectively and provide great customer service. So there are a number of resources that you can access following our discussion tonight. As the project ramps up, I would expect that there will be updates in the weekly village manager's memo, which if you are not a subscriber, you can do so on the village's website. We have an entire section devoted to this project on the village's webpage, and you can get to that at villageshorewood.org/water meter. You can just also type water meter into the search bar on any page of the website. And that includes information like frequently asked questions, some more information on the homeowner responsibilities. It will also include a page that includes the meter installer's photos and names and photographs. So if there is any concern about a person who's at your home to do an appointment and you just want to verify that they are who they say they are, you can check that website against their photo ID. You can certainly always also call the Shorewood Police Department or the Department of Public Works. The page includes cross-connection control program information. This meeting is being recorded and it will be available for later viewing on the website. Also included is a statement from the North Shore Health Department related to this program and safety guidelines. There is a leak detection troubleshooting guide, just as a resource for residents. And all of the communications related to the project, including copies of the schedule letters, postcards, anything you've received so far will also be available on the website for viewing. You may certainly at any time also call the Department of Public Works with questions, and our staff involved in the project would be happy to answer those for you. So that's the end of just me talking. We have time allocated tonight for project questions. I would just ask that if you have questions, you use the feature at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand, and then we will recognize you and you can unmute yourself.
So as Leanne mentioned, at the bottom of your screen, there's a reaction tab. If you click that reaction tab, then you'll see a raise hand emoji that pops up. If you click on that, we'll see that, and then we can call on you to ask your question.
If that isn't working, you can also give us a wave.
Or just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. We have a pretty small group here tonight, so
Or
yep, I see
that.
Gus and Joanne here. I see that you guys are raising your hand.
Yes,
So,
once the staff is in our house to work on the meter, is there an estimate of how long that replacement and other inspection will take?
So the total time that we're estimating to get in and out on a conservative basis is about a half an hour at the most. It really depends upon if your valves are working or if the technician needs to freeze the service. If the valves are operable, we can usually get in and out. And then also we have to do the inspection. Usually it'll take about 15 to 20 minutes on a normal. But if they have to freeze the service, it'll take a little bit longer than that.
Thank you.
Will there be any replacement of lead pipes, the access line?
Not in conjunction with this project. There may be other opportunities in the future through the village, but this is really just focused on the meter itself. Chris?
Yeah, I'm guessing the answer is no, but I wanted to check. My valves are likely original to the house, the valves on either side of the meter. And I was wondering if there's any way that in part of this, those could also be replaced. I know there would be a fee to that, but I'm guessing the answer is no, but I figured I'd check.
So you're correct. As part of this project, we don't have a fee associated for the installers to come in and also change the valve. So if the valves aren't working, we would freeze it and then change the meter out. On an occasion where we have done this in the past in other projects, where if you have a plumber set to be there the same day that we're going to be there at the same time, and we have to freeze it, we could freeze it, allow your plumber to change out that valve, and then we'll change out the meter and put in the radio unit. That is a little laborious to do that, but we can work with you in order to make that happen, because the village does like it when your valves are in working order.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See, Bruce has a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, now you just muted yourself. Sorry, Bruce. There we go.
So you can hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
I've got 4 units in Shorewood, and I've been maintaining them for 20 plus years. My great grandfather and grandfather were builders way back then, and I'm taking care of these for these duplexes for my mom. And I know that I would like to be able to get the shutoff valves replaced, and that would require me calling the village, the department, and having them come in and shut the water off so that I could replace the on-off switches or valves by the water meter. Now, is that something I can do prior to when you guys start scheduling your replacement schedule, you know?
Yep. That would be fabulous. Yes, you most certainly can.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
That was, I guess, hello? I mean, go ahead.
So the only thing that I'll add to that is the village would come out and try and shut off water service to your home at the curb stop that's outside the property.
Right.
And a lot of times, because they are older properties, there's not always a guarantee that we can get on that valve and operate that valve. And so that's why the village had made the decision that if the valves inside the home aren't operable, we're going to freeze rather than try to go out and shut water off outside, because we just don't know. I mean, obviously, when it was put in, somebody might have put a tree next to it, and now that tree is 60, 70, 80 years old, and the roots have damaged our access to that valve. So by all means, please call the village. They'll come out and see if they can get on it. And if they can, they'll close that curb stop valve, and then you can change out, or otherwise we're going to have to do that freeze kit on your service in order to change the valves out.
Okay, I understand, because they came out on one of the units, we had a leak, and I saw how they clear out the pipe, that the cover was broke for all these years, and I saw how they cleaned that out. Yes, okay. You answered my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So does anybody else have any questions or comments or concerns or anything you'd like to ask staff here? Leanne, you did a great job. No one has any questions, any more questions
Oh.
for you?
Must be, right? So as I mentioned, this is recorded. We also recorded the session that we started at 5 p.m. and that had a few, some similar questions, a couple of different questions. Those will be available on the website. I'm hopeful beginning tomorrow, certainly by the end of the week. So if you have any desire to relive this wonderful experience, you can certainly view those again. They will be there. As mentioned, there's also quite a bit of additional information on the website. There's a pretty extensive list of frequently asked questions that you can take a look at. As always, you can also call the Department of Public Works. We are happy to answer questions about this project at any point during the project. So that is going to conclude our presentation. So you can certainly take exit of the meeting at any time. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.